Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Live Music. This is our special Thursday, October 29th edition of the program.
Tell them who the guest is.
I will. The guest tonight is Michael Hall, acclaimed viola player.
He's so fantastic.
I know, he's very hardcore and very sweet and very good at what he does.
I can't wait for him to come on to the program.
Don't worry, he's coming on shortly. What's going on, everybody? It is late October. This is your Thursday Night Live Music, and just getting right into it here. I'm going to it's going to be a good show. Michael, how are you?
Good, Lewis. How are you?
I'm very good.
It's good to see you. I like the green spectrum you've got going on there. It's
You like that? I'm doing my Boris Karloff tonight sometimes also.
very nice. Or it's either that or you're like auditioning for the next mascot for the Shamrock Shake. Looks nice. I like it.
Thank you. Michael, you're sideways to me. Is that how you see yourself on your thing?
No, let me see if I can adjust this, because actually you're sideways to me.
Oh.
So how can I adjust that to get the fix? Now that is probably proper for you, right?
That is. And I think that's the way the video is being recorded and projected.
Okay, let's see if I can get my camera then.
Okay, that's fine.
To be set on something different, because right now it was only doing that. Let's see here.
I'm going to do this.
Technology.
How are we doing now?
Wow. Okay. I don't have a phone stand holder that will hold it this way. My phone holder only does it this way. So let's see what I can do to prop it on something a little more sufficient. Could you hold on for 2 seconds?
Of course. Take your time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for our amusement park version of Thursday Night Live Music. And it is late October. We got a full moon coming in a couple of days. I'm not sure how the kids are going to be doing their trick-or-treating this year. I understand some people are just going to be throwing candy out the window and hoping the kids can catch it. But that's what I'm hearing. Or PVC pipes that are like shooting down the driveway or coming out of second floor apartment buildings. But we'll see what happens. But for us tonight, we're going to talk some music. We'll talk some art. And I want to thank all you that are joining us here and joining us in the future. My guest on tonight's show is Michael Hall. And there he is. Hey, this looks good, Michael.
Yeah.
I like it.
Here.
Hey,
I have so many books stacked on other things, sitting on other things, and if the world tilts the wrong direction, so will I. There we go.
That sounds great. Don't worry, I've had cameras fall out and do different things, but I think we're good. Michael, how are you tonight?
Good. I mean, considering the state of the world and everything, I think right now, good is great, actually.
Right.
I mean, all things considered.
All things considered.
I'm healthy. My family is healthy.
Good.
And we have water and food, and beyond that, actually, this whole era has put a lot of other things into perspective. As long as we have some simple things in life, the important things, it feels good.
That is true. I might probably mention this every week on this little thing, but family has become so much more, even from before, of like, that's when it whittles down to everything, inconveniences, conveniences, haircuts, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. when it comes down to it, it's almost like pioneer times. Like, okay, what do I need? Food, heat, but mostly what I need is to be with my family, be with the ones you love, or at least be able to contact them in some form and not have to worry too much. Other than that, that's kind of like where the magic can happen. I found that as a person that makes art, take away a lot of all those accoutrements that you don't need, and art can still be made. And sometimes I'm actually making more space for art. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I'd like to hear more about that sometime. So
yeah, it's a cool thing that I'm not sure I can go back to the old ways in some ways, or at least there's a new way to do things.
So you've definitely been affected. It's impacted not just your personal life, but your artistic operation, your vision, and your aesthetic, even.
I think so too. That's one of the things I'd like to talk to you about, honestly, before we sort of get into the performance part. And I'm going to jump right into it. I'm actually going to quote you, if you don't mind. And this is from a post, so it's not you saying it verbally, but it's you posting something. You're talking about artwork that I can relate to, and you said, visual art and music share some common building blocks: composition, rhythm, harmony, dissonance, texture, and form. So it's not surprising that composers, like yourself, may find inspiration in visual art and vice versa. And I'm agreeing, vice versa, that's what's happening. I think you and I are on the same page. That's been going on beforehand. I think this is in relation to a museum in Kansas City that you were performing a piece for, Nelson Atkins, right?
Yeah, the big museum of art there in Kansas City commissioned a composer to write a piece for me based on the installation, actually celebrating the installation of the 60-foot tall stainless steel tree.
Yeah, it's crazy. I saw the image of it and I was like, that makes me think very much about, the word visual art sometimes can be very flat. And again, people like to make compartments and put sculpture next to that, but I kind of consider it's all doing the same thing. So I guess one of my questions for you as a composer, as a musician, in general, it's about how the other disciplines affect what you do, but maybe specifically, and maybe this is what I'm referencing here, is how does it, almost like maybe a story about how a piece of somebody else's art has pretty much like sparked you into composing, performing, something like that.
Well, there have been certain books, characters in books that have really inspired me. I'm a big fan of Ignatius J. Reilly from the Confederacy of Dunces. I'm also a huge fan of the novels of Cesar Era. He's an Argentinian author who has very little playtime or shelf space here in bookstores. You have to special order most of them. But he wrote a ton, like over 140 novels. And there is no wasted space. He's just like, open the page, you're going at it all the way to the very end. There's nothing, it's not like Proust, where you're contemplating the flickering, which has its place. But I think at this time right now, it feels really good to because I'm not traveling, and I'm used to, over the last decade, flying over 200,000 miles a year to perform in Asia and U.S. and like having and reading novels like that are just like action, go, do, go, and I think I just said goo, but do, and
do the goo.
That's I found that to be kind of a nice counter to my then practicing, and then the couch. And binge watching on Netflix, back and forth. It's been nice. Visually, I adore the work of Roxy Payne. He's a sculptor. He's still living. He's very active upstate New York. But I also just love. It's just such a cop-out. Good art. What does that mean to me? Art that actually just says something, right? And it's different things for different people, of course. We're all looking for different things as well. And if we're lucky, sometimes we'll be hit in the face or over the head with a piece of art that gives us a message that we didn't know we were looking for. Because too often we're looking for something to confirm our already established beliefs.
Right. And sometimes that's bad art. honestly, whatever
Mm.
that term is, like that really gives you that emotional, like, oh, like that recoil, like, oh, I have to come back to that, or I have to say something,
Mm.
so as much
Oh,
as beauty, it can be the other,
oh yeah. Yeah, that actually reminds me of something, a very small cul-de-sac here. I, often when people find out that I'm a classical musician and they'll say, "Oh, classical music is so beautiful." Well, well, yeah, there are, of course. I'm not going
Yes.
to dispute that. But the reason we love all good art is it's, regardless of the medium or genre, it expresses the entire human condition. It's not just about beauty. It's not just sugarcoating life and having it as a panacea, or even just recognizing only the beauty. It's also countering that with the ugly, the extreme, and all the most importantly, the gradations of gray emotionally and in situation in life between Utopia and Dante's level 5,000, which it feels like we've been ever increasingly getting closer to. So, but that whole condition all the way through. Um, and as a good example, people can find pieces of music. And I think it's harder in music, at least from my experience. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It's easier to depict joy and anger, but give me jealousy in music.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Or envy. Some of these gradations that are really kind of in the middle, and these emotions that you will experience for most people in midlife. You don't really have too much jealousy when you're super infantile or super, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
all these emotions that are very layered and complicated. Other things got you to that point, most likely. And I love art and music that talks about those experiences as well, because they
Yeah.
create for me, they allow me to reflect upon situations that got me to that.
Yeah. I agree.
Because
That's the garage door of my wife coming home. She
I'm
she
glad it
sometimes.
sounded a little more extreme. So, but
No, I hear what you're saying. And there it goes down.
because I mean, happiness by itself is wonderful, but it's a dead end too. Once you get there, now what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I mean in terms of art, once you express that happiness, now what? It's kind of like all the fairy tales, and they lived happily ever after the trauma. But the
Yeah.
story ends. What's next? How did they get through the next 35 years or 50 years of marriage after Aladdin, and did all this other stuff and
Yeah.
romance
Yeah.
the
Well,
prince?
one of the challenges I find with visual art is getting it all there together almost on one canvas, which is even harder to do if I'm just documenting a performance.
How do you do that?
Um, I think it's, since almost like the time, if I have a lot of time to do it, right? Well, think of a novel. A novel can express all these things because you're taking a long time to do it. For a movie, you get an hour and a half, and you can do the range and the character movement. Um, in some ways it's great to see. I don't really sort of try out to do that in the beginning, and more like comes afterwards because I'm reacting to the music, and
Mm.
oftentimes the storytelling and the music will give me all of that. So it'll give me something, of course, that's beautiful at some point, but oftentimes, and this happens a lot with contemporary classical, there's like sorrow right there. It's like the blues are like coming at me from the start. It's like we're starting off from this point, you know and we're
Mm.
going to see where the arc goes. Oftentimes, it does go to beauty and some sort of serenity, um, and a lot of abstract thought, and comes back often to back to the sorrow in some ways. And that's almost like the character arc of the piece. I'm finding, and maybe that's just me reacting to it. So I've got a canvas, right? So I've got these edges here, like tonight. I've got these edges to it, and it's like, well, it's all going to be contained in there, and sometimes it's color for me. Honestly, it'll be not necessarily representation with a hard edge, and again, this is going to be very sort of idiosyncratic in my experience in the moment,
Mm.
but I feel like it's all there. Meaning, I feel like I'm trying to put it on the canvas. Whether that is successful, that's sort of up to somebody else, and that oftentimes what's good about not being representational sometimes is people will put their own selves in there, and they'll see their version of sorrow, their version of happiness and joy. And often that's like people's connection to certain colors. I'm not kinesthetic like that, so it's not like, you know, I'm emotionally being told what to do with colors and sounds. I'm more reacting to it emotionally, but you know, that's like, so what I put into it doesn't necessarily mean what's there in terms of how somebody else reacts to it. It's kind of like it's a birthing process, and there it is. So if someone else likes the kid's behavior, great. If someone else doesn't, you know, that's okay too. It's sort of open to interpretation. I mean, it's sort of a cop out in some ways, but that's what's exciting about. It's more like I said, the emotional impact. One of the reasons I want to come back to working with you, and I've seen you play as a soloist a few times, and as a singular storyteller, that's what I'm liking. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this guy is putting it all there, you know, and I know he's playing another composer's work most times. Well, thank you. I know sometimes you're doing someone else's work, but you're making it your own as if you wrote it yourself, right? That's sort of emotional content, which is, putting yourself out there, you know, it's a free fall in a sense of like, I have the confidence this is going to work, and here it is. But also like no apologies too, like which I very much appreciate.
Thank you for noticing that. I mean, I guess you didn't ask this. One of my biggest pet peeves is in music or anything, but especially we're speaking in art, is perfection. This idea that the goal, that's the aspiration, and we all know that, you know, certainly as a musician, there is a time in which that teacher says, make it perfect, make it perfect. You're aspiring to be perfect. And you think that that's going to be the be all end all, not only performance, but the plateau of your cerebral, emotional, professional engagement. But quite honestly, I found perfection to be quite low hanging fruit, meaning it's a starting point. And what I mean by that, it's not saying have low standards. That's not a misinterpretation of that. It's that to be perfect, right notes, right rhythms, right bowings, right articulations, right tone colors, right style. You can have all of that, and it still not be a musical experience that says something. And that component of actually, thank you for recognizing, of trying to put yourself into it. It's often hard for people to explain. But when I try to talk about it to others and to my students, I say, you must be as convincing as possible, which is a much higher standard than perfection. Perfection is getting all the ingredients. That's basically building your toolbox. What are you going to build with that toolbox now? Build something worth of motion, build something of impact that leaves an impression. It doesn't have to be the final statement of life, but it needs to be a starter of a conversation at minimum.
Yeah.
And that trying to be convincing is a big part that I like to try to live in my art making. Audibly, whether I'm drawing, and I see that in yours too, because you don't sit back and calmly just paint by numbers. And I don't mean literally number painting, but it's not formulaic. I mean, it's visceral, it's emotional, it's absorbing. And when I see your paintings after concerts, there's a visceral aspect that looks like here's somebody that was present at this event. And I don't mean just physically, especially. Yeah.
So I think being convincing is being human, and which in all its gravity is exposing yourself, and also makes it real and makes the other human who's watching it, the audience member, or other artists and creatives relate to it. You know, like this person's being honest, this person's being emotionally open. And if you don't get that connection, then you're right. Then it can be as perfect as it can be, but like, do I connect to it? Like, does it speak to me at all? And some people like I don't need to be emotionally shaken here. I really just want something that's going to confirm what I already believed before I came into the concert hall, you know, that things are the way they're supposed to be. Things are in their place. Please give me that. And there's been composers over the years that like they deliver that. It's kind of like I'm forgetting the artist now, but the the guy who does the metallic bunnies, which is just like, you deliver the metallic bunny, and it's like, okay, this is what we want. Don't deviate from that. And the artist might be going like, well, I'd really like to evolve here. And maybe the agent is going, you're doing metallic bunnies. That's what people want. Shut up. So every time you go into the concert hall, there could be somebody saying like, look, we liked your last piece. Can you do that again? And that's fine. There's a lot of economics to it, right?
Mm.
There's a lot of like, you don't want to shake it up too much because, well, then you might not be in the same financial position you are next season. If all of a sudden you're like, okay, I usually play the viola, but tonight I'm doing the accordion, and people are like, oh, okay, really? This guy's doing this? So then you kind of lose your audience. But it's so important to be real. One of the things I love about the live music element, is that, I'm going back to you performing as a soloist, is that I'm working off the sound, of course, but I'm working off of you as a sculpture, you as a storytelling sculpture, which I can tell whether the sweat and the tears are real or not, and my paintbrush is going to react to that. Like is he really there? Is he present? And if he's not, I'm going to paint it too. I mean, I've also painted creatives that are, you could tell they're sort of just like, they're doing it and it doesn't really matter the audience is there that much. Sometimes that's fine, but I don't know about you, but I mean, when's the last time you got to play live in front of an audience?
Actually, believe it or not, it was at the beginning of this month. Seth Bose had invited me to perform. The first one since early March, like the first week of March. I played at Constellation the first week of March here in Chicago. And then the first week of October, I played at the Thirsty Ear Festival, which was it's an outdoor music festival, an outdoor classical street festival. So
nice.
It was windy, it was cold, but I didn't give a damn. Yeah, I was playing in front of real people, but it felt great. So, yeah, it was wonderful.
That's cool. It's like when live music is slightly coming back, and when it comes back to full force, it's going to be like, how we that live in the Chicago area are like, this is how we feel when spring comes. Like we've been in the house for 6 months and it's been cold, and all of a sudden we're like, oh yes, this is life. That sort of vibe. And when live music comes back to it, I'm expecting that sort of energy. Where I hope so too. And we'll see what happens. There's a lot of different things going on. I don't know, quickly going back to family, I noticed that one of your roommates, and I refer to my wife and my daughter as my roommates oftentimes because I don't necessarily say them by the name. One of your roommates is a composer also.
My older daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, she's a sophomore in college right now. And so she's actually been composing on and off without any tutorial study from another person until just this semester. But her whole life, she has been surrounded by me playing pieces that are dripping. The wet ink is still wet off of the page.
Yeah.
And, every night, since she was born, she's heard me playing Ligeti, Berio, Stacy Garrop, Julia Dolfa, all of these wonderful composers. So she's really she has not been kind of stuck into thinking a composer first has to write Baroque music or sound like Mozart at the very beginning. She can do whatever she wants. So her big fascination right now is she's been working with the voice and experimenting with the colors of the voice, transitioning and doing diphthongs and elongating that experience. And she was inspired by Caroline Shaw. And so she wrote this wonderful 4-movement, 8-voice a cappella piece. And it's wonderful. It's called Made in Voyage. And it's
that's the one I heard that. Yeah.
Like 4.5. Oh, you did? Yeah.
Totally I listened to it. I think it was like 2 days ago. That would hit me. I was like, oh, he's got a roommate that composes, and then I made the connection to like, oh, okay, it's his daughter. Yeah, that's cool. That's gotta be
she also plays.
That's sort of a proud dad thing,
Well, and it's not yet. Yes, without question, very proud. And it's not because I aspire for her to become a professional musician in any capacity. If that's her aspiration, I'm going to help that. But it's
Mhm.
because I feel happy seeing her being a human being that is comfortable expressing herself in more ways than just yelling. I think if we were all involved with the arts in our culture, we would have possibly a little more empathy, hopefully, but at least more ways to articulate those subtle um, emotions we were talking about before they get to a log jam and burst into an argument
Yeah,
So just the fact
right.
that she's creating and expressing feels wonderful to me. She's a fantastic creative writer as well, and she's presented her writing at several conferences. And she was like the only freshman last year presenting alongside seniors and graduate students and stuff like that. So I'm just happy she feels comfortable creating and sharing that creativity with others, because that's the
There you
other
go.
part.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. I've got my
Thank you,
my,
Brad.
my daughter is a writer of sorts too, and I guess as a visual person, and especially a person that enjoys music so much, and I think you alluded to something like this in one of your posts, or I just sort of know this about you, is that like I don't know the space before the music starts and the space after and the space in between,
Mm,
the silence is very important,
yeah.
just as important as the music is, and um, I'm sort of taking this from a Roscoe Mitchell quote
Mm,
of me talking at one point, which was about basically, like the silence. Make sure that the noise that you make um, is important. I'm misquoting him, of course, but like the silence, I took it as this here. Like the silence really doesn't need you. The silence is perfect in a sense. And so when you decide to break that silence, make sure that your intent um, I don't know, like speaks and improves and doesn't make us all want to go back to the silence, but also just like realizing that you're breaking something that's already perfect, like, and your intent is important. I guess that's what it comes down to. And this is me sort of taking a couple layers back of what he's talking about.
mm.
And it also means with a canvas, like I've already started on this canvas a little bit, waiting in a sense, but a blank canvas is fine without me. It doesn't need anything in terms of good art, bad art. The blank
Could actually be
canvas is
very
going,
scary.
yeah, it's like you might want to touch me, but you don't have to because I'm fine. So once you start putting stuff on here, making sure that I hope I know you know what you're doing because I'm good.
I've heard many composers say the scariest thing is a blank sheet of manuscript paper in front of them, because every choice they make is yet another choice and a possible deviation from perfection.
Right,
Or,
right,
but yeah, that's terrifying. That initial blank page, that blank canvas,
yeah,
unless you come at it with intention. So
right,
I
right,
take that
and
to say.
yes,
Uh,
a purity of attention, which in some ways says like, I'm not sure if this is going to be beautiful. I'm not sure if this is going to be terrifying, but it's going to be honest. And that's more important than making a pretty picture or composing something nice. I'm also thinking about people when they're writing, like how do you create that space when you're writing? My daughter's very good at conversational writing, so there's a lot of beats and pauses that
oh,
lets the reader get in there and hear the sort of inflection of someone biting on their lip, that kind of thing. It's a little harder to do when you're writing because physically all the words are together, you know.
mm,
Um, so it's like you could do that in a book because you're creating a space in some ways with words, and poetry is really good at that because it's already got space. You know what I mean? Like intentionally, you have to have some separation. But that's what we try to do is to add to the silence, you know, and let people comfortably get back to the silence and respect it. That's that goes back to the importance of listening in
well, yes.
conversations and debates. And man, I'm looking for. I voted today, and I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to civility. I'm looking forward to a space where we think before we talk. Isn't that weird? Think before you tweet. That email that you write does not have to be sent when you're, you don't have to do that. You wait until the next day, or all that stuff. I'm looking forward to a more cordial, civilized world if we can get to the way it feels like whether it used to be. I don't know. We'll see. I'm willing it into existence, just like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't do much, but I'm just a conduit for things. But people, let's make it happen. It's this is a historically big old time here. We've got like, I don't know, a week left.
My oldest daughter and I voted last week, and this was her first election.
So, oh, cool.
Yeah, and we live on the south side of Chicago. So we actually voted at the Martin Luther King Community Center.
Nice.
And we were only in line for about an hour, a little bit over an hour, but there was a lot of people, and they were being pretty efficient about moving people through. And
that's good.
There was just a lot of serious intent on everybody's face. It's like, we're here on a purpose. No one's going to keep us away from doing this.
That is cool.
And, yeah.
That is cool. I feel a little bad because my daughter's not of voting age, but she kind of said something like she didn't want to vote because there's the tension involved. This is just me and my wife talking about it, other people talking about it. And I said, well, one of the nice things about voting is that nobody knows how you vote. It's a very personal, private. You go in there and do your thing. You don't have to tell anybody what you did. It's your right, It's you exercising, and you're adding to everybody else that's voting like you're voting, I guess. I don't know. I feel bad that she's leering away from it because of all the tension. You know what I mean? Like that's part of it. It's about,
and that's purposeful too. That's purposeful on her behalf, but there's, of course, sorry to get into that, but yeah, there's certainly an escalation of that tension being portrayed from multiple sources, and depending upon your empathy, depending upon where you're at and who you're surrounded by, it's going to have a different impact on your life. And
right,
man, I've not missed one in my whole life. I don't know. It's just a thing for me. Maybe because I remember very distinctly my grandfather who fought in World War II, and it's not that he was not super patriotic. He didn't even tell us about the experience. It wasn't until years after he died that I knew he even received a Silver Star and stuff like this. Just didn't talk about it. But he did emphasize the fact that this is beyond a right. This is a democracy, and you participate. You just participate. Be counted.
Do your job, Yeah. That's cool.
But, and I know people have different takes, but I'm going to keep doing it. You're not going to keep me away from those.
That's right. Because there's a lot of places where you just don't get to do it. I mean, you've traveled extensively. I know you spent a lot of time in Indonesia, for example. Just about one place that I know you've been to a lot. It's different all over the place. Not everybody has a on the surface functioning democracy. It's almost like I almost had to sort of choke on that for a second. I think of ours is it actually working or not? But it is. You know what I mean? It's we got to both. Michael, I have one things I want to mention to you for some reason. It's just like one of those little. It's kind of a pop culture thing, but Martha Mook? Yes.
Yeah. Do you know Martha?
I don't know her. No. I'm just familiar with her work, like the No Ordinary Windows thing. And in terms of like visual art, and it goes along with a little bit, the Laurie Anderson, thing where we're making visual art at the same time that we're making music. Like we're composing, and at the same time we're composing for space, and we're set dressing, and we're acting, at the same time. And that I guess I must have seen an Instagram thing of you of like you're hanging out with Martha Mook, and I'm like, how cool is that?
And you know what the coolest part of her is that, I mean, everything that you've heard about Martha, you meet her, she's just Martha. I mean,
Yeah,
she is like what you see is what you get. And she's wonderful. I mean, just a great person. I could hang out with her forever. Um, and then once you start telling stories to people about what she has done in her life, you know, she's played
yeah,
with David Bowie multiple times, recorded and
yeah,
live stage, and all these other people. And she's just had she's had a life which has impacted many others. And she has lived a life that has pushed boundaries creatively and with
yeah.
engagements of break down barriers between creative genres, which I love. I get so tired myself of all the silos. Um, I mean, yeah, you're making or you're not. And, you know, and
Right.
she's the person that is endlessly making, but more importantly, she's the kind of person that encourages and promotes and brings other people up. It's not all about
Hmm.
Martha when you're there. She's so comfortable with who she is and what she's done. She
Yeah.
just keeps doing it. She doesn't have to tell you about how great she is. She doesn't have to tell you and pass out all these different resumes and stuff. But she's a great role model for me and many others in that she has accomplished a level of engagement which is thrilling. But what makes it great is she brings other people up to that level as
Mm.
much as possible. And that's what I love that. She's a mentor to so many people and probably a lot more than she even realizes. So
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. And, you mentioned before, and we should probably get performing here in a little bit, but the notion of, you said silos, you know,
mm,
and I often use the word compartments. It's nice to see when when they're just like they're blurring, whether it's just, whether it's dance and visual art, or whether it's music and dance and visual art and poetry. We have, as a culture, I would say, in the last good 200 years, so like put a lot of these silos on different fields on the same plane, when honestly it's one big silo. This is me sort of just talking, working in this discipline over the last 10 years, with just visual art and music, and thinking there was like this big river between us. And now, there's no river. We're all playing in this. We're all playing in the pool here, and
that's cool.
it's the same thing with dancers and stuff. And even though this is a hard guy to bring up, Richard Wagner, it's almost like bringing up H.P. Lovecraft these days. But his concept of Gesamtkunstwerk, of all art being together, and you know, I would love to see how close he got to that in terms of,
Hmm.
he didn't invent that term, but I ended up thinking that he ended up sort of trying to emulate that and putting on performances that were all of that. Like, again, it's all arts. It's the acting, it's the set, it's the space, and
I'm the
that's just
building.
it's the building, it's the whole thing. It's outside the building, and it's the I would take it as far as that and say it's the conversation that you have when after it's over, the emotional impact. And then it's the if you're an artist and you go to a certain piece, say you go to an opera, and then I call it the takeaway, and I get that from when I go to one of your performances or when I go to other performances, and then I turn it into my own art, and then I create something, or I bring it with me as an experience, and it keeps on going like that. Then I'll teach my kids something, or I'll do a workshop, or as an educator, you're taking the opera that you went to last night and you're bringing it to the daytime, to the next day, to influence other kids. And in terms of all arts, that's like, oh, that's just like an exponentially happening thing. And then that's exciting to me. Conceptually, that's very exciting to me. um, as for right now, Michael, you and I get to be sort of two oscillating planets, and we'll keep it simple.
Okay.
Like, you play, I'm going to play, and 20 minutes from now, whatever, we'll see what we've got. Instagram's going to cut us off at 9.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Thursday Night Life Music, and thank you for joining us tonight. My guest tonight is Michael Hall. He's going to play for us, and I'm going to paint.
All right. Here we go. And because we've never done this before, Louis,
No.
you want I'll just play, no conversation between. It's just here we go.
Whatever you want, honestly.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. You want me to announce pieces or non-verbally? You don't want to be impacted by the titles or anything? I
think titles will be good. I think for the I have to be conscious of my audience. People like to know, since we don't have a program, So please, that's fine.
Okay. So hello, everybody. Let's see if this works from my vantage point, your vantage point. So the first piece I'm going to be playing this evening is by Paul Coletti. He's a violist living in LA. And I love this tradition of a musician composing for their instrument or for others. Again, we talked about silos and breaking specialization. This is a person that's teaching, he's performing, he's composing, he's writing. I love it. So this piece is titled Fantasia for solo viola, and it was written just 5 years ago. So we're going to change the mood drastically, and I'm going to play two movements from a composer that most people have never heard of, but deserves more playing time. Her name is Charlotte Hampe, mid-century German, but she was writing in a style that is very much, well, neo-Baroque. This is her take on the Baroque coming from 1950s. Thank you. I love her music. You know, it's Baroque in style, but there's something a little bit more expansive about it. Please don't ask me to qualify what that means exactly at the moment. But it's definitely Baroque form, and it's very tonal. But it's definitely not Bach. It's definitely not Handel. There's a little bit more of a, for me, in character, tongue-in-cheek quality happening a little more often.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a buoyance or something, or a little bit of levity, but yeah, there's a bounce. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's see here. How about so this is it was just a couple of days ago, Paganini's birthday. And oh, I apologize. Reverse. It was this anniversary of his death. So I'm going to play this piece. It's not by Paganini, but it's by the next person in the 19th century who became the successor to Paganini, and his name was Vitomps, Henri Vitomps, and he became the Paganini of the latter part of the 1800s. Wrote extensively, played equally on violin and viola. And this is a piece he listened to Paganini, and the title is Riccio and Age to Paganini. Thank you. Ah.
Michael, I'm feeling like this is going to be too short. It's going to make me want to revisit our collaboration possibilities.
Oh my! What time are we at already?
We've got less than 5 minutes.
Okay, so I better choose a piece appropriately because it'll kick us off, right? Right at 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Then let me try a little Bach. I don't think you've ever heard me play Bach, probably.
No. Now this is dangerous. Last time Rachel Brown played some Bach, they kicked us off the air.
Oh, because of copyright issues, even though Bach is not copyright.
I guess it was like the children of Bach wanted their cut. But let's live dangerously.
Well, yeah. Here we go. This is definitely public domain. No problem there. We have time for one more, or is that fine?
Well, it's, to my calculation, it should be kicking us off. So I'm not sure why it's not. Maybe they, I don't know. And I'm seeing in the mirror here, I was flinging the paint. I got a little Bach on my forehead there.
Oh,
That doesn't happen very
that.
often. Got a little color in there.
Sometimes I get a little Miles Davis in my head too.
Well, I think, Michael, to be safe, I think we should probably end there, so that we don't get cut off mid-program. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been fantastic.
I'm so grateful and so appreciative of you inviting me to be on this program. My only regret, the only one, is that I was focusing on playing so much, I didn't get to see you in action and actually watch you paint. Because wow, this is magical what you do. So,
well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. That's one of the nice things about this happening is that there's videos, where we can experience it again, and I will most likely turn this into a YouTube video that we could watch again. And I play with layers of colors and stuff like that, and superimposition and stuff like that to test to see if the purity of what I experienced tonight will take the scrutiny of rewatching, and just to see if once it's got a couple of layers, if it still rings true. And I'm confident. I know it's gonna work, because I think what we did tonight was very, we're talking before about being honest, and I think you and I, part of the nice thing about having a conversation for our stuff, is that we can express ourselves in this real way. Two other creatives too. For instance, Brian Chase is saying hello. How you doing, Brian? Love your work. It's nice to see, we're a tribe, people. This is us getting together and expressing ourselves. Hey, last thing I want to say to everybody else is vote, please. And encourage others to vote. That's the other thing too. I think a lot of people are fearful. I've taken some even Uber rides where people are like, yeah, I'm not really sure if I'm going to do that. It's like, no, this is your privilege and your job, and it's all anonymous. You know what I mean? And vote like there's no fear, I would say. You know what I mean?
My comment on all of this, and yes, I totally endorse and back what you're saying. My comment is, if not now, when? Exactly.
So. You got it. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the voice and the mouth of myself, Louis Achenbach. More importantly, on tonight's show, we've had Michael Hall. Michael, thank you for being part of Thursday Night Life Music. This has been an epic one.
Thank you so much.
Let's do something like this again, brother.
It would be a privilege. This was a joy. Thank you so much, Louis. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, everybody else.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you
Bye.
for being